Hello and welcome to another episode of Ctrl Alt Access. It's a video game accessibility video and audio podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Laura. Hi, I'm here as ever with my lovely co-host, Arevia.
Hi everyone.
How are you doing today?
It's been a long while now, Laura, because
Yeah.
I ended up all of a sudden getting like a ton of work on my plate, and I was just like, and then we rescheduled and rescheduled. But it's nice. It's weird though. I talked to some friends of mine. Normally, this time of the year, like going into the summer vacation, is not normally a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
So it's like December, but in May. So it's a weird, it's been a weird couple of weeks, but it's nice though. It's been fun. And you, Laura, how are you holding up?
I'm busy and chaotic.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna delve into it in too much depth here, but if you go to my Blue Sky, there is a very lengthy thread about a book publisher that's going on at the moment that's not ideal. And I am also in the midst of preparing for the Accessibility Summer Showcase, which is going to be releasing on Friday, June 6th at 11 a.m. UK, 4 p.m. Let me try that again. The Accessibility Summer Showcase, airing Friday, June 6th at 4 p.m. UK, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. That's coming up, and I'm prepping for that. But also, the Switch 2 is launching the same week, and the rest of Summer Games Fest is happening the same week, and that's all... But on the positives, for those of you who are watching the video version today, I am wearing maybe the most rainbow-covered t-shirt that has ever existed.
I've forgotten.
My mother found out that it was like, she sent me a little package. She was like, I heard it's Pride Month soon, and you and your wife, you know, are celebrators of Pride, you know. She found a fabric that was just covered in very gay iconography and made us t-shirts for Pride Month, and I was like, I actually kind of love it. It's adorable. So
She
I am
just
wearing
went.
my
She just went, "You're gay. This is gay. Gay together."
Like, for anyone not watching the video version, it looks like someone took a packet of stickers about Pride Month and just slapped them all over a t-shirt, and it's kind of great. I'm feeling, we're recording this on the 1st of June, and I'm feeling like I'm celebrating the season.
Yes, absolutely. And happy Pride Month to everyone. We should have started with that one.
Exactly. So yeah, where do we want to start on things we've played this week?
Yeah, do you want to start with that? Do you want to start with 2
Sure, yeah. So I've played this through start to finish. It's about 5 hours. You've played a little bit of this, right?
Yes.
So we talked about this when it got announced. 2 is the new game from the creator of Katamari Damacy, and it is a short narrative third-person adventure game about a child whose arms are stuck out horizontally in a T-pose shape. And it is, it's no secret, the game is an allegorical story about living with a disability.
Yes.
And I have complicated feelings about this game. There's a lot I love about it, and I think, on the whole, it's a really worthwhile piece of art that exists.
Yeah.
But with some complicated caveats.
Yeah, on the whole, I am glad it exists. I think it is a game that can showcase to a lot of kids and young people who struggle or have a friend with a disability to like understand. It is sort of like almost an educational piece to some degree. And it is fun to play. It plays well, and it is easy to do. I struggled a bit, like I think it always is a bit hard when games that are so much focused on disability is at the same time non-accessible. The fact that you had things like button mashing, you had to like do a lot of things with your controller. then again, I understand that that was kind of the mood of like you want to like sort of control the characters, so you move them when they're washing their
Yeah.
face and you move them when they're eating and stuff. But could we get a simplified controller? I feel sort of like
Yeah.
you you have a mission, but the mission just goes so far. The
There's
story
there's a
is wonderful.
yeah. There's a few problems with accessibility I had with this. For me, the biggest one was motion sickness accessibility.
Yeah.
This game has a lot of stuff with fixed camera angles, and like, let's say you're going down the street and you turn a corner, you don't get to control the camera movement as you turn around that corner. The game automatically swings the camera around the corner. And those kind of 3D space camera movements that aren't in player control can be a really big issue for motion sickness. This is particularly worse in a later chapter in the game where you play as the main character's dog, and you are much lower to the ground and
Yeah.
doing much more. You're doing camera turns that are sharper and closer to the ground more frequently, and that really threw my motion sickness.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of the game itself, I want to talk about it in like 3 segments. And the first one I'm going to talk about is like representation of living with a disability, because like overall, I think this game is really valuable to have as like a game you could put in front of children to have a conversation about disability.
Yeah.
You play as a teenager, they've just turned 13. The default name for them is Teen,
Teen.
so I'm gonna refer to them as Teen. Um, and Teen is living with a disability, and a lot of the early game is about is really focused on the fact that disability aids and adaptations around the home for
Yep.
living with a disability are liberating rather than restricting.
Yes. Which I really liked.
Yeah, like we start the first in-game day with like this is Teen's morning routine, and a lot of that routine involves like how can this just becoming a teenager still have independence and not need to be reliant on their mother for support while having challenges around the house. And
Yeah.
that involves things like one of the very first things that happens is they need to go to the bathroom in the morning, and you can see through the shadow, like silhouettes through the door, that their dog helps them take their shorts down and back up either end of going to the bathroom. You have like an elongated spoon so that they can still like their outstretched arm can reach back to their mouth to feed themselves cereal. Um, and a lot of the early game I really like is about the fact that independence is really important, even if it is. Maybe it would be easier or less messy, or like there would be fewer issues if someone else were to help, but independence is important.
Yes.
Things like when you're pouring yourself milk and cereal in the morning, you're going to end up spilling a little bit of that, and it's just not made a big deal. It's
Nope.
like that is a little bit of a thing, but it is important for being able to have independent
Yeah.
living. We see stuff like having a specially adapted sink to be able to wash their face
Yeah,
without
that
being
one
able to
was
get their
cute.
hands
I really,
hands to
really
their
liked that.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. And like so much of that early stuff is about like it's really important to be able to have an established independent routine, particularly as you grow up as a disabled person, and making that very normal and something you don't even have to think about. You're just the accommodations just are there.
Yeah.
And to talk a little bit, to skip a little ahead in the narrative and talk about some middle game light spoilers. Like this is not a game that I would be that worried about spoilers with, except for Act 3, and I'll be spoiler careful about that because that gets a bit weird. But what I think this game does really well is it does examine losing that independence really well.
Mm-hmm.
There is a portion of the game where Teen is separated from their dog, who acts through a lot of the game as essentially like a service animal.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of things that the game does really well to talk about, like loss of independence there. Um, it's an episodic game with like your little introductory, like the start of the cartoon sequence at the start of each episode. The episode where they don't have their dog to help them with their routine reshoots all of the shots from the opening, but without them having their dog there to help, and really recontextualizes how big of a change that is.
Oh.
But there's also a bit there where they go out with their mum to go looking for their dog, and they don't get changed out of their pajamas into their day clothes before going looking for their dog. And it's not explicitly stated, but the thing that's kind of understood is to get changed into your regular clothes without your service animal there to help. As a young teenager, you'd have to rely on your mom to
Yeah.
help you get changed. And that's like a loss of independence that teen isn't really comfortable with.
Yes.
Is I'm okay with my dog helping because that's the routine. If I'm a 13-year-old and I have to get my mum to help me get changed, that makes me have to acknowledge that like I'm more disabled than I like to think
Yeah.
about. So like there's a lot of things like this I think the game does
Really, really
handle
well.
really well.
Yes.
The bit that I'm not so sure about is with regards to how this game handles what I would call the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer problem. Which I'm not the first person to talk about this problem with the story of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which is that it somewhat implies to young children the things that make you different are okay as long as they're useful to other people.
Yes.
As long as Rudolph with your nose so bright won't you guide our sleigh tonight, then all the other reindeer suddenly start being your friend. They love you now that you're useful. They stopped bullying you. You're helpful now.
Yeah.
This game falls into that a bit.
A bit, yes.
And into the idea of disability as secretly a superpower.
Yes.
And this is addressed like in the opening song. Relatively early in the game, Teen realizes that they are capable of flying by spinning really fast and essentially using their arms like helicopter blades. And I don't like how this plotline is explored, because the short version is they are being bullied pretty badly at the start of the game. They have like 3 regular bullies who like they're scared to go back to school. They're dragging their feet on the first day, not wanting to go back to school because they know they're going to get bullied. They are able to use their superpower of flight to save a bully from getting injured, and then suddenly all the bullies actually like them now and become their best friends.
Yep.
Because, you know, as soon as your disability is useful and beneficial to them, they like you. And as soon as, you know, that's the case, they're actually very sweet, lovely friends, you know, once they stop thinking you're one of those useless disabled people.
Yeah. I have some thoughts around it as well, though. But like, first of like the game, it does not say that it is an educational game. Like which I think is a bit important in that conversation. But
yeah,
also,
but they did market themselves as being developed in collaboration with a disability charity, which you know I think
yeah, no, I agree with
that way.
But
yeah.
The thing I wanted to say with this is that sadly this is for a lot of us reality. As soon as we are a nuisance, we are looked at bad. Like and I like, okay, so do I like this in the game? No, I don't. Like, let's just put it there. But it also is reality. It sadly is.
Yeah.
It is that if you're so disabled you can't work, then you're a nuisance. But if you're able to work, then you're one of the good ones. Like, this is sadly a picture of the reality we live with. Like, if you have a chronic fatigue, then you're just a problem. If you have something we can either misuse for workforce, for content, or for sympathy, like empathy, like, oh, you're like you have like this and this serious illness, so now we're going to feel bad for you. Now you're sort of, you have fulfilled something in society, then it's okay. And it's a fucking sad reality.
It is, and that's the problem. Is I get that this is representative of reality, but the reality is really sad.
Yes.
And that this game doesn't view it that way. The problem is that this game views it as like,
it views it in the
it's great that I'm not being bullied anymore. And it never stops to go, like, maybe there should be a conversation of why were you mean to me before you knew I was helpful?
Yes.
It doesn't examine
it. It stops a bit short.
Yeah, the most that this game examines that is that teen very has like 3 lines in like the start of an episode that's like, "Oh, it's sad that they bullied me before, but they're nice now, so I'm forgiving them."
Yes.
And it's weirdly hand wavy, and
and it's sadly also the reality of being bullied and the reality of being
yeah,
like a disabled person. It's just like, yeah, but come on, now they're nice to you. So like it's the same thing with like if you have problems with a hospital or you have had medical
yeah,
neglect happen upon you, and then it's just like, yeah, but these aren't going to do this, these are nice people, these will
yeah,
do it, and then
and
you have to sit aside your real human emotions about the situation to
yeah.
appease society.
And and to your point, you were saying about like this not being an education, like a factual educational
Yep.
game. The problem is the stuff that this game does best is being a factual education
Yes.
game, and on top of that, I think about who this game is gonna be most beneficial to, who I would give this game to if I was giving a copy to someone. The people it feels most appropriate for is like to give it to a child to teach them about disability.
Yep.
That's who it feels like this game is for.
Yep.
And it's like it feels like it reinforces negative tropes about exceptionalism and making yourself useful to non-disabled society.
Yep.
And this isn't going to frustrate everyone the same way it did me,
Nope.
but it reminded me a lot of being a teenager and thinking that as someone that like for a while was good at school, that I could stop my bullies bullying me if I did their homework for
Yeah.
them. And
Yes.
what that ultimately did was it made them go, "Oh, now we're just going to threaten to bully you worse if you stop doing it."
Yeah.
Uh, oh, you're useful to us. Cool. We'll bully you even harder if you
Yep.
don't do the useful thing.
Yep.
Like it's not a great lesson to teach in the first place, but it just leans into that even taking the bullying aspect away, it leans into the idea of um expecting disabled people's disabilities to secretly be beneficial and a superpower
Yeah.
in some way. It's like the idea of the autistic savant. It's the
Yes.
it's
Like
the
you oh no,
yeah,
your life is so horrible, and instead of finding peace and acceptance within that
yeah,
horror, because sometimes disability and medical
yeah,
problems are horrible, it's just like, oh no, but now you can read minds, or it's the X-Men factor. We're all of the
yeah,
suddenly like, oh no, it's no problem that you're a mutant because you can fly,
yeah.
you can
It's
save
the
humanity.
it's the Daredevil superhero thing.
Yes.
It's I'm blind, but all my other senses heightened, and therefore I can do amazing things that other people
Yes.
can't. It's like sometimes a disabled person is just disabled, and that just makes their life harder. It
Yeah.
doesn't make their life
But
better in
to
any
the
particular ways, and
defense,
that's okay.
yeah, but to the defense of this game though, it shows a lot of the struggles, because
Yeah,
I don't know if there would be, like, because this disability and all of it around it is so complex, I don't know if it would be a satisfying way to make a game like this, because if they weren't to like put in these things, it would also have another side of the disability community go, why do you only show the bad things? Because there is a side of the disability community who are more like, no, we only want to show the happiness. So I think this might be like a lose-lose situation for the
I
game.
I would argue you could do a version of this game where they find where teen finds happiness and joy in their life
Yeah,
in spite of the fact they're disabled.
and you see
That
that.
doesn't have to be I found happiness and joy because it turns out my
Yes.
disability isn't as disabling as I thought,
and
or is secretly the trick to save the day.
and the thing that I liked about the start of the game is that when you see Teen at home with
Yeah.
their dog, you actually see Teen being just happy. Like,
Yeah.
and as long as school is not mentioned, and Teen is happy. When Teen is out and
Yeah.
about running around with her dog and having fun, Teen
Yeah.
is happy. Because
They have such a fulfilling life. Like I love some of the adaptations that their community has taken around them. Like,
Yes.
they go and get a sandwich from the giraffe sandwich shop in the morning that is in a really long tray, so that they can hold it up at an angle
Yes.
and slide it toward their mouth so that they can eat it. And I'm like, that's great. That's community accessibility accommodations that are just really normalized and a lovely part of their routine.
Yeah.
Ah, then there's the third act of the game, which I'm not going to get into spoilers on, but I will say Act 3 of the game gets fucking weird. Um, in the way that, like, the previous games by the Katamari Damacy creator get a bit weird.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I... I'm gonna try and talk about this in the way I talked about it in my review when trying to be not too spoilery about it, but... if you've played the game Katamari Damacy, you're aware of a character called the King of All Cosmos, who was like a giant, colourful man in space who talked a little strangely. Act 3 of this game feels like the King of All Cosmos came down to give you a surreal lecture about eugenics, ableism, and enjoying imperfections in life. It uh it gets weird and metaphorical. Um the the matter of Teen's father is a major part of the third act, and I could not have predicted where that was going. I'll tell you off air after recording if you'd like a review what the deal there is.
Yeah.
There is a single sentence that I've been telling people as like my spoiler sentence of like how weird the third act is, and I think you would find it amusing.
Most likely.
The third act, very silly. The third act, what I will say is, I think the third act does prove that you don't need to have the ability to fly stuff to get into some of the weirder, more surreal
Yes.
conversations
Yeah,
about
yeah.
disability that they try and get to with the flying. I think that there is a much wilder way they talk about those topics that wouldn't have required making the disability a superpower.
But all in all, I would recommend people to take a look at this game. I would recommend. But with the caveat of like, they talk about things that you might not like, but I think also the normalization in the game is also quite relieving.
Yeah, like, I know we've spent, I think, most of our time talking about this has been talking about the negatives and the complicated feelings, but like overall I did walk away from this going, I'm glad I played this.
Yes.
I think it's really interesting. It's just that the places where I'm conflicted on it are the places that like I've lingered on the most.
Yeah.
But I do think overall it is a very worthwhile game.
And I also know that like where we go, like how can I explain this, because English is not my first language. So every time you fall into something, you have a road you have to go, and people are different ways on that road of acceptance, of knowledge, of everything, and none of us are at the end. It's like a ongoing road we have to walk with our own disability and problems and society and all of this jazz. And I think that this will hit people differently comparing to where they are in their journey of self-realization, of knowing about history and stuff like that. This is not me saying that if you have a different take in us, you are in a wrong place. This is me saying that I think it will be benefit for a lot of people, different sides and different ways in their journey to experience this and see this done through a lot of good eyes. Even when yes, they fail, but it's also a lot of good things in this, which I actually think not only I wish also developer would like maybe learn a bit about how talking about disability as well in the early act of the game of like this. If you have a disability, I do not do the X-Men thing where it's just like, oh, but I'm in a wheelchair, but my wheelchair can hover. Like, it's an easy way out. You can 100% show struggles around how you
Yeah.
need to adapt your society and storytelling and world, because that's realistic. And when you do that, that is cool.
Agreed.
Yeah.
The opening act of this game does do a really good job of showing like how you can just show a disabled life in a way that doesn't have to be the focus, but is like, yeah, someone lives their life using adaptations.
Yes.
So yeah, with
Yeah.
that out of the way, you've been playing something this week as well, which before we go into, I'll do my little reminder if I'm currently not playing Xbox's games because
Yes.
they have been selling technology to the Israeli Defense
Yes.
Force, which they have admitted to recently. They claim that, oh no, we definitely checked, and none of the technology. We have no records that it was used to bomb Palestinians, but you know that's debatable.
Yeah.
But you know our situations are different, and Arevia is currently playing Xbox games, and you've been playing something that I haven't played, so I'm very curious to hear about.
Yeah, I was contacted by Bethesda wondering if I would do a sponsored stream for them, and I said yes, because we have heard a lot about Doom and their accessibility feature in the game. And that was insane to experience.
Yeah.
The game have had some really, really, really cool feature, because I am somebody who struggles a lot with motion sickness. And I were scared going into this game because I was just like, but this is a first person shooter. You cannot go into third person. How would this work?
Yeah.
And it actually worked out. And
Yay.
I really, 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 really cool way they have done it, because they have done things like they've taken away the typical things like, right, screen shaking, take away all of this, take away bobbing of your head. But they've also done things like weapon bobbing, so none of the things on your screen is bobbing as well. So
I love that. That's great.
So you're sort of, everything around you is stationed, so nothing there. And you can also reduce time, so it's the speed of how fast the game runs, you can reduce that. But they've done it in a way which I don't understand how you can do this. No, I'm not a developer. But they've done it in a way where it doesn't feel like you're running in a slime. Because a lot of time when you slow down time, it just sort of make everything feel like you're walking on a moon kind of deal.
Yeah.
This game did not have that effect. So when I turned it down to 80% and did all the other typical non-screen shaking, non-elemental shaking, nothing like that, and I took down every like grunts and stuff because that struggled a bit as well with sound, I could play this game, and I still can play it without getting motion sick.
That's great.
Yeah, and it's a lot of these things. You can actually see that this is one of the first Doom games where they're gone, yeah, everybody can play it. And I think it's also quite cool because I listened to a podcast, another podcast, where all of the participants are people who are really like hardcore gamer. Because I often say that, yes, I am a hardcore gamer, but I'm not good at gaming. I game everything, but I'm not good at it. And which is why, which is why like normal mode, easy mode for me, that is what I like because I can't do it. But they actually also play the game on like, so you have, I can't remember the names of it, but it's like easy mode, normal mode, a hard mode, and then nightmare mode. But then you also have two other settings there where you have one where you have given life, like sort of like you can get life, and if all of your life goes out, you die. And your save gets deleted. And then you have nightmare, like extreme nightmare modes, which is survival mode, where if you run around and you die, everything, like you can't get a new life. There's a it's a dead zone thing. But the thing that is really, really cool was the fact that even whatever mode you chose, you could still go in and fix all the settings.
Yay!
So you could go in and go like, okay, I want to do the nightmare mode, but I want the parry window to be really, really large because I can't deal with parry. Or you can go like, no, I want a really, really easy game, but I want me to take high damage so that I really, really easily kill everything around me, but I, on the other hand, also at the same time, And that was really, really cool because then it meant like, yes, we have these presets and I love presets because that's easiest for most people. Most people won't go in, do a lot of like small stuff. But if you need that, they have that. And it was quite fun. It's Doom. Somebody asked me what was the story, and I was just like, I don't know. It was Doom. It was rip and tear. I got a weapon.
It was Doom, but it looked a bit medieval, and there's mechs and dragons, I guess.
Yeah, and I had a shield, so I went like, yeah, I have a shield. And I played it with my feet controller and 2 joysticks. And part of the game is that you go into a mech that is like 300 meter high. And I was just like, hell, fuck yeah, this is fun. I feel like I'm legit sitting in a mech now going like
it is the thing that I really loved about the Xbox Adaptive Controller and the 2 joystick setup when I was using it for Sea of Thieves. Is like, it feels very I'm controlling a mech, and there is a bit of me that's like, I want to play mech games with this.
Yes. And it is all of that silly billiness of Doom before, and it hasn't, the settings and the way they have interpreted accessibility does not take away from the game's feel. And it was also cool when you start the game, they actually have on a bunch of things in game as a preset. You can turn it off, because you can turn off everything. You can turn off the HUD. You can make it as hard as you want, but you can also make like a god mode where you take 1,000% damage to everything. So you can just have fun. But one of the things they did was that by default, whenever you can parry something, it outlines them in purple. And whenever you can shield something, it is green. So they have just understood that, hey, Doom has been, because I saw in chats that a lot of people were like, I wanted to play Doom and I want to play Doom Eternal, but it's too hard for me. And they actually listened to their audience. They actually went like, okay, a lot of people want to play these games and they are ridiculously fun, but they are so hard that they're nothing for new players. They can't even set their foot in this world, because if they do, it's not going to be fun. It's going to be to a point frustrating that it's not fun anymore. But there you can do that. And it was just silly billy fun. My husband is now playing it, and I just... I'm playing one game on my Steam Deck, and he's sitting beside me playing it on the Xbox. And then sometimes I just hear like, yeah, sometimes, because he does something and it's just fun. And the only thing that I think I want to go with a negative is that it is expensive. It is expensive, and it had that silly thing where you could buy for early access, which I just think is a bad thing. I mean, like that.
Xbox has been making that like a really common, like, I wouldn't say it's 100% of their first party releases, but most of them in the last like 2 years have been like, pay an extra £30 to play it like 2 days earlier.
Yes.
And I'm really not a fan of that, particularly for like financial accessibility and how it preys on fear of missing out and impulsivity that can impact disabled players more. Like, I think it's an actively anti-accessible practice that I've complained about from Xbox.
Yes. The only thing is that on the other side, it is on the Xbox Game Pass, so you can play it for like dirt cheap. But it's like,
it's just that they're trying to prey on the fact that like people with various disabilities aren't great at impulsivity to go, you could wait and have it for free in a couple of days. You could pay us now, pay us extra money that you'll maybe regret in a day or two.
And it's but also like a price. I can't remember what the price was right now, but it is quite pricey. I think it is around the $70 to $80 pricey.
Yeah.
And when the main story, because I checked it up now, like how long to beat, the main story is said to be 14 hours. That feels steep. Like, it feels like an expensive game. But like, it was fun. I thought it was fun to be able to finally play a Doom that I haven't been able to play before. I think the accessibility team did really well on this. It seems like they have gone around and actually tested it. If you have, I think it also depends. Like, I'm saying now that I could play it with my motion sickness, but motion sickness comes in a lot of different degrees. If you are still one of those who, like, if you look at something, then you're motion sick, this is not the game for you. I saw somebody said that they have that and they are able to play it with making the screen quite small. so that they
Mm.
play just in the center of the screen. You can do
Yeah.
that. I wish the HUD could be even bigger. I wish you could have moved thing around on the hub.
Yeah.
And there were simplified controllers. I did not test them out because I found what the regular setup was quite easy to use.
Mm.
But it is like, this is what I hope to see in Doom going forward.
Yeah.
And I am just curious to see where they're going from here. So yeah.
I am excited to hear all that, and this is a game that is on my list of at some point I would like to come back
Yeah.
to, when able. I'm glad to hear that it is accessible.
Yes, and am I also quite whenever you have the possibility to come back for it when Microsoft gets a grip,
Yeah.
I really really am curious to see how the motion sickness will affect you, because I know
Yeah.
that our motion sickness are quite different than how it affects us.
Yeah.
So I am curious about that.
I've heard a lot of really positive things about it from people with motion sickness, and
Yes.
it's one that like I would really like to be able to be a part of that conversation, but Microsoft, please sort your stuff out
Yeah,
so I
sort
can,
yourself out.
feel okay with coming and having a look at your game and if it's accessible.
Yeah.
Um,
There is still like I think like I think this game so I have like games that is in a category or in a bucket of like we are really true to ourselves. And in that
yeah,
bucket it's games like Elden Ring
yeah,
and Dark Souls, and I think also Doom now goes in that bucket. Because yes, they have the differences from them and Elden Ring or the Dark Souls is that they are still true to themselves, and then they have taken accessibility and upped the accessibility so that,
yeah,
but they are still their game. It's still rip and tear.
yeah,
If you do not like blood, it's not a game for you.
yeah.
If you do not like being stressed in the form of like a lot of things happening on the screen, this is not a game for you. Like they're still, it's still a Doom game no matter what
Yeah.
setting I set it up and did stuff, because you can like
Mm.
desaturate the background, you can give high
Yeah.
contrast mode, there's a lot of cool things.
Yeah.
But it's still Doom. So if
Yeah.
Doom is not accessible for you in the form of like what the core mechanics of getting hundreds of monsters surrounding you at the same time is not access, that will be for too much for you. This is still not the game for you. They have not gone away from
Yeah.
their core values. So yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. So we've got one main news story this week, and I don't think we need to go into any huge depth on it, if for no other reason than I think it's exhausting as a story for both of us. But
but it needs to be talked to about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once again, Grant Stoner over at IGN has done a very lengthy piece of accessibility in games journalism that is very important to read and is well worth checking out the full article of. Able Gamers, who we kind of glossed over, had been involved in the creation of 2T. They are a charity that does great work. I want to be clear. This story does not change the fact that Able Gamers does fantastic work in terms of being at conventions and events, making sure that people can try out accessible tech and find out setups that are helpful for them. Financial support for people that need financial support accessing accessible controllers, creating custom accessibility setups for people in their own homes. Able Gamers does really incredible work supporting disabled gamers. They are one of the big charities in the space. But unfortunately, there was a story a couple of weeks ago from Grant Stoner about the charity, and specifically about one of their founders, Mark Bartlett, that delved into some pretty serious allegations. The short version is that Mark Bartlett was specifically accused of some pretty racist, sexist, homophobic, and particularly ableist behavior, as well as mismanagement of company funds and other abuses of his position. I don't think that we need to like linger on the specifics of the bigotry he did, but I think like there's one example I've been sharing with people to give you a sense of like I think it's a particularly striking example given the position in the charity he was working in. He is quoted by a member of staff at Able Gamers as having said at some point, "Oh," and I'm paraphrasing here, but not by much. "Oh, for the marketing position, we should put the most fucked up disabled person we can find, one with like a bunch of disabilities. Put them in that position."
Yeah.
Um, Talking about people with disabilities as though it's like, talking down on people with visible multiple disabilities, and the idea of put someone like that in a position to be a visible face. Oh, they look disabled, we'll put them in a position so we look
Yep.
like we're doing something. That kind of ableist behavior, which is like really scummy.
And that behavior is not unique to this story, and I have
Yeah.
experienced it a lot of times where
Yeah.
even a lot of events that I was supposed to be part of, and then they go, yeah, but we also need somebody else, somebody who's actually disabled, somebody we can look at and say like they're disabled, because that will make people change their mind. And I'm just like, yeah, no.
I mean, I've talked to you previously about at least once someone trying to get me pulled from a story about accessibility in which I gave quotes on the grounds that I quote unquote wasn't speaking from a place of lived experience about being disabled.
Yep.
That kind of stuff is weirdly prevalent.
Yes.
And this story, like, go give the full thing a read.
Yes,
like, we're not going to recount every account
because
here.
that would not make it. What do you call it? Like it wouldn't. It would do it a disservice, because this is a really good story. You can also listen to it.
Yeah.
Just FYI, you can also listen to it.
Yeah.
And it is a heart-wrenching story. I have 2 things I want to comment on it.
Yeah.
The first thing is that I myself have raised money for Able Gamers.
So
with
have
my
I.
stream.
I've done charity streams for them, yeah.
And then when I saw this, I got extremely, extremely angry. And then I tweeted out like, I'm sick to my stomach thinking that I ever raised money for this. And then somebody commented to me, and also I got some DMs saying like, hey, I understand your feeling, and your feelings are valid in this situation. You feel like you have been
You've been wrapped
to.
into something you didn't want to be involved in.
And you've been lied to. But, and this is a really, really important thing, Able Gamers have helped people. And the people who reach out to me were people who have gotten help from Able Gamers, saying like, hey, this is sucky, and this is nothing taken away from this story, but without them, I wouldn't be able to game.
Yeah, this is why I started talking about the story before we even talked about the allegations, by going, this charity does great work. This does not change the fact they do great work and have done great work. I don't want me talking about this story to be a reason that people stop supporting Able Gamers. No. I think that charity has problems and it needs to get those problems sorted. But I hope that they keep getting funded and keep getting to do the good work that they do, because there's really no one else, particularly in the United States, there is no one else doing what they do. And it would be an active loss to this industry for them to just vanish.
Yes, and I also think that, so we know, because, so we have had 2 things come out of this.
Yeah.
Mark has themselves done a piece and write out a piece. I did not understand how that was supposed to make him look good.
I do not like his response. For anyone who hasn't read it, it really boils down to him pointing his finger at Steve Spon and going, he's the problem. He's the problem.
Yep.
Which will, as a slight aside, Steve Spon is the other person named by name in the original IGN article, and a really disappointing thing in there is that it is suggested that when this story was brewing and Mark Bartlett was going to get exposed by Grant and IGN, Steve Spon may have gone around trying to convince people not to speak up for the story and trying to get them to pull their quotes from the story.
Yeah.
That's really disappointing news. But I bring that up because Mark Bartlett tries to paint the picture of, oh, Steve Spon was just trying to destroy my career, trying to ruin my career. He's spun up all these stories. He got everyone to talk to the press. He's just being vindictive and trying to get people to hate me. And I'm like, that does not make sense.
No.
Given that reportedly Steve was trying to bury the story, which I'm kind of pissed off to hear that Steve was trying to bury the story.
It's really disappointing to hear.
Like, that's maybe the most disappointing thing to me out of the whole thing, the whole IGN piece, is Steve trying to cover up for Mark. That's really disappointing.
And
But it
the
makes me not believe Mark when Mark says like, "Oh, Steve's just trying to ruin my career." It's like, no,
no,
he was clearly trying to protect your career,
and
even
in
if only to
the
protect Able Gamer's brand.
yeah, and in the answer to Mark, it is a lot of like questionable things he says that also
Yeah.
is, if not, if there are not ableism, they're bordering to ableism.
I I mean, I would point at the when he says like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I installed a ramp in my home, so that Steve and other disabled people could visit my home, and it was only used 4 times
Mm-hmm.
over the years." Like, that's ableist.
Yes,
That's really
it
like that's
is.
fucking ableist.
I did not
Um,
like, and I also have to say that able gamers
yeah,
have also answered and responded.
yeah,
And I okay, so there is a bit more to the story. So, um, before this story came out, able gamers have started to done a lot of things. Mark hadn't
yeah.
worked with them for quite a while when the story was released. So like things have happened behind the scenes before the
Mm,
story came out. So they have started trying to fix up on things last year.
yeah,
Started fixing up things last year because some
yes,
financial things came out. All of this is in the article. Uh,
yeah,
and they have started like trying to fix up. But sadly, in the reply as well, even though I'm glad I replied, they were a bit dismissive, and I wish that they would be a bit more, hey,
yeah.
this is an actual mistake.
They
We are
they
going to
tried
do
to
better.
they tried to throw shade at the IGN article and
Yes.
imply like they tried to imply that the IGN article was wrong so that like their reputation wouldn't be as harmed, but they did so by saying things like, "Oh, they never attempted to reach out
Yeah.
to us for the article," which Grant was able to turn around and go, "No, I have receipts. I did reach out to you. You chose not to respond."
Yes.
Um, so like. It feels like a lot of people at Able Gamers outside of Mark tried are trying to not go, "We own up, this is a fuck up," but go, "Well, maybe the article's a little bit," like Mark was trying to do it by going, "Oh, the article said most of the people work remotely," and that's not technically true because slightly under half work in the office, and then some days 2 people come in for special meetings, and on those days technically over half of people have come into the office. So it's wrong to say that more than half work from home because sometimes more than half are in the office on the same day.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of it feels like it's trying to nitpick specific wordings in ways that don't really disprove any of the article's substance to diffuse the damage the article is doing rather than acknowledge the substantive claims of the article
Yeah.
are accurate and we need to own up to that.
And I had somebody in my community going like, but how can we know if this is real? And I want to say a bit because I think some people will maybe sit thinking about that after reading the article. And for
Yeah.
that, I want to say that in cases of HR, because this is a lot of these are HR cases, and
Yeah.
in cases of whistleblowing, which this also is because people
Yeah.
have come out and said that they have experienced really, really bad thing where they work, there
Yeah.
is sadly and will never be a we can say this with 2 lines under the answer and say that's the answer. In
Yeah.
cases like this, most of the time and almost always, there is a will of this is alleged, and we have to
Yeah.
believe when we get overwhelming proof of a lot of people saying it
Yeah.
inside the company and outside, because a lot of people now have
Yeah.
come forward to talk about their experience working with them and their experience being consultant and their experience with Mark. When it's over, we have to just form an opinion and go from there. If somebody goes, but I need like 100% proof, I'm sorry, but in these cases you will never get that. That is just a sad
Yeah.
reality of dealing with whistleblowing cases, dealing with HR. You will never
And
get, because you are not a fly on the wall there. Nobody was a fly
yeah.
on the wall there. You will never get it. This is the form of you have to believe victims.
What
And
what
when there
I
is a
what I will
lot of people coming out saying the
mm,
same thing, then it's starting to be extremely obvious that this is tens, 15, hundreds of people aren't lying about the same thing.
yeah. I will also note when you have an article that makes these kind of like legal level accusations
Yes.
about a major charity like this, you should probably put some weight into the fact that this would not have gone through the editorial chain and like
Yes.
IGN's legal team and hitting
Yes.
publish if they like even if like some of the evidence cannot be publicly shared to protect
Yep.
the anonymity of the people who spoke forward, you have to believe that the legal team at IGN will have gone,
Yeah.
do you have evidence for this? Do you have evidence for this? Even if you can't show it publicly, can you show us, the legal team, evidence that someone made this claim, that like that there is a trail of evidence that IGN is confident they won't get sued for this
Yes,
article.
because IGN, as
yeah.
a huge, this is not talking about a blog, we're talking about a huge newspaper, would never put their own reputation and people on the line going like, they know that if we end up being sued for defamation or sued for anything, we can go, but here is what we're just saying what we've been told, stuff like that. And is this hard? Yes, but at some point you just have to actually look at what has been said and start to believe people when a lot of them talk.
And I've spoken to people for articles that will never get published about things I've experienced in the industry, because often, like, I know things have happened in this industry. I've experienced them.
Oh yeah.
But, sometimes you talk to people and you start working on articles like this, and it's like, yeah, there's multiple people and I'm confident this is the case, but we don't have enough of a rock-solid paper trail that a legal team will say yes, so this story's just not going to go anywhere, and that's unfortunate. But, like, having been through that, I'm like, if someone like Grant can get a story like this to print, I am confident his sources are rock solid.
Yes.
Like, I have seen firsthand how much proof you can have of a person's misdoings in the industry and not have enough for a legal team to sign off on running a story. So
and also, as somebody who literally got bullied out of my last job, I also know how extremely hard it is to sit on that side and go, hey, I have been mistreated. It's extremely hard to go forward. People think like it's, oh, you just have to. No. This ended up with me like for 2 months, even after leaving that company, being extremely mentally ill because I just couldn't handle the fact that what have happened to me. These people have come forward talking about something this is not easy. This is not something you do on a Friday evening going, yeah, this happened, and then you go out and
I've had stories where I've had receipts of what's happened to me, and like I've said to other reporters, like, at some point I'll send you what I've got, and then just sat on it for like a year plus, because I'm like, I don't have the mental energy to go digging through and getting all those screenshots I need to get, because it's going to just reopen all those wounds and it's going to get all upsetting.
messy.
Like, it's not easy to do the legwork of digging back in and finding the receipts of the shit that tears you up. Like, more power to the people for this article that spoke up. It's not easy.
And if there will be some news, if there do happen more things, we will keep on about it. But highly recommend go read the article, and if you want to go read Mark's and Able Gamer's response.
Yeah, not that I think either of them really does either of them a service. The section in Mark's where he talks about his poem about bullying that he has on his office wall, about how sometimes great leaders get perceived as bullies. Don't think that segment helped him, but
no.
Anyway, we're gonna leave it here for this week because we have a busy couple of weeks ahead with Summer Games Fest and the Switch 2 happening in the next 2 weeks.
And
so chaos.
Yep. And if you are coming to this segment of the show and going like, this was edited a bit different, that's because I edited it, okay? Be nice to me. Be nice to me. I did the editing for once, so be nice to me.
You're doing me a wonderful favor so that I have more time to finish getting the Accessibility Summer Showcase ready, airing June 6th. Friday, June 6th at 4 p.m. UK, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. I got it right this time.
Yes.
Look at me with my smooth self-promotion.
Oh, yeah. We will most likely be back next time because I have forgotten to tell Laura that I'm on holiday then, but we will maybe fix something.
I was going to say, I think I have something 2 weeks from now.
Oh my God.
We could either record next week or 3 weeks from now. We'll work it out.
We'll
make a plan.
We will make a plan. But you will hear from us.
Yeah.
days a week.
Well, until then, where can people find you on the internet if they want more of the stuff you
They
do?
can find me under the name Arabia, except on TikTok, where somebody stole my name. So there I am, Arabia Gaming, and I'm still on the TikTok train. Every third day I post on TikTok something new, learn something new about accessibility in small bite-sized pieces, which I found that to be really, really nice. It is not heavy. It's like, 3 minutes of learning something new. So yeah, go and check it out.
Yay! I can be found at Laura K Buzz pretty much everywhere on the internet. Over the next few weeks, it's mainly going to be Twitch and YouTube. If you tune into Twitch or YouTube, I'm going to be doing lots of live streams.
Yeah.
There's the Accessibility Summer Showcase, Friday, June 6th, 4 p.m. UK, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. You can check that out on YouTube with American Sign Language, British Sign Language, or audio descriptions.
Yep.
A huge thank you to Manycat Studios, who sponsored our British Sign Language version this year. Absolutely could not have done that without them. But other than that, I'm going to be streaming reactions to basically all of the Summer Games Fest streams that are happening. So check out many hours of me slowly getting exhausted and losing my mind while video game trailers play at me. And also a bunch of coverage of the Switch too. I've got a bunch of accessibility coverage of that planned for this week, so check that out on YouTube.
Yep.
Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. We hope you enjoy, and we'll be back at some point soon. We don't know when, but at some point soon.
Soon.
Goodbye.
Bye.